You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is time for our bi-weekly Women's Hockey Spotlight, and that means we welcome in Erica Ayala. Erica, lots going on right now. Let's start with wrapping up the IIHF Worlds.
Yes, indeed. So once again, we have the United States and Canada battling it out in the gold medal game. Once again, we have overtime free hockey in Utica. And yes, the Canadians come away with the game. Now, I don't know, Rachel, this seemed like a really high scoring gold medal game, respective to what we usually see in hockey, and certainly between these two teams.
Yeah, especially that third period that just completely went off the rails in the best way possible.
Right. Yeah. Not good for people's anxiety, but if you're all about goals, then there you go. It was just one of those games that again, if you like offense, for people like myself, maybe you want to see a little more of a buttoned up game, or this was not for you. This was absolutely not for you. You see that both teams score one goal in the first frame, and then it's 2 goals aside in the second and third stanza. Shots on goal were definitely all about the Canadians there. Penalty minutes also, the Canadians edged out the US, but overall you just it was actually not MPP, folks. That was the golden goal. We have a new hero arising, perhaps, Gil, in Danielle Sardachny. So I don't know if the Canadians are going to relinquish that title anytime soon, but MPP, of course, did score in this game, scored 2 goals, including the goal to set up, I guess, Sardachny, if you will. But is this a little bit of a changing of the guard? Are we ready to do that? I mean, we're going to talk about the US as well, but it seems like in the last handful of years between these two teams, we have been seeing some of the young talent coming right out of the NCAA be able to really shine here. Sardachny, the most recent hero, but what are your thoughts, Gil, on what it takes for a fan base to be comfortable with a changing of the guard?
Well, it's always, there's always a certain reluctance to say goodbye to the people you've been following in their career and enjoying watching them play. And yet at the same time, it's exciting when new players come on and take the stage. So it's a mixed bag, I think, overall, but certainly keeps fans on their toes.
Yeah, for sure. And, with so many goals, Rachel, what kind of conversation are we having about goaltending? So it was Aaron Frankel for the U.S. and I believe Anne-Renee Desbiens, if I remember correctly, for Canada. But, should we be worried? I mean, is it a little bit of fatigue for these players for the first time in several years, for most of them, at least those who are in the PWHPA, playing consistent, quote unquote, true hockey season, and then also going into Worlds? What are your thoughts about goaltending?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting theory that, they are playing that full season, like you mentioned. And so jumping into international play in the middle of a professional season is something new to a lot of these top goaltenders. They did it in college to some degree. So, that does transfer over. But also, I think, the pro game and the schedule is something a little different. And, playing at a much more elite level in the PWHL than maybe they were doing in college. But yeah, I think that, the development of goaltenders is something we're going to see a lot more focus on over the next decade or so in women's hockey, I think.
Yeah, and I think it really, we hear a lot, Gil, about goaltenders at any level, that getting touches even if a goaltender is getting peppered early. I mean, not ideal, especially, I mean, that speaks about the defense maybe not showing up on time. But to some extent, you'll hear goalies say that they want to get touches early. So you have a little bit of that. But then what's the tipping point? You know, where are you maybe putting too much on the goaltender and not really shoring up in front? So, you know, I find it interesting to what Rachel is saying, and, you know, the kind of question that I posit, because as we see the PWHL, which we'll talk about in a little bit, grow, to Rachel's point, maybe we do see a little bit more time and even development camps, somewhat for goaltenders, just to make sure that they are, you know, staying sharp.
Yeah, look, goaltending is arguably the most important position in hockey, and I think if you want to make sure that your league is up to par with where you want it skill wise, having him good goaltending is vital. So developing that pipeline becomes extremely important.
Yeah, for sure. So with that win, Troy Ryan, who is the head coach not only of Hockey Canada on the women's side, but also PWHL Toronto, which again we'll talk about the PWHL shortly. He has coached more wins at Women's Worlds than anyone else. 25 Women's Worlds wins. Just one more than Ben Smith, who was the USA coach for a time. So the stats leaders actually come from the silver medalists, Rachel. We have in goals, it's Alex Carpenter and Laila Edwards, who we're going to talk about in more detail shortly. Assist, Caroline Harvey, who had a great Women's Worlds last year. And also points overall, Carpy, Hillary Knight, who we've kind of been a little tough on Knighter in the PWHL. And again, Caroline Harvey, all at 10 points there. You know, so it's interesting to see that, at least on the offensive output, as far as stats leaders, the USA right there, but Canada able to get gold.
Yeah, and you know, I do want to talk about Hillary Knight very briefly, because we have been a little hard on her as far as her PWHL play, but somehow she always manages to step it up in these big tournaments.
Yes, indeed. Just kind of another clutch player. I don't know that. I don't know exactly if Knight has ever gotten a moniker like Marie-Philippe Poulin. That being said, if there was a comp, Hillary Knight's just about as close as you can get. I'd say Decker and Amanda Kessel are up there historically, but unfortunately, neither one playing right now. We know Decker had a really gnarly injury in Beijing, which ultimately seemed to lead to her retirement. And Amanda Kessel seemed to step away from competitive hockey, at least for a time. I wonder what that means in the long run, but only time will tell. But let's talk about some of the young blood. Rachel, we talked about Laila Edwards several spotlights ago. That because the rivalry series was her first taste with the senior national team. And although Laila Edwards is trying to perhaps underplay this, and I certainly can understand, it has to be mentioned that she is the first ever Black woman to compete for the United States at the senior national team level. Blake Bolden has broken through a few times. Kelsey Kolzler has broken through a few times in junior tournaments or in exhibitions, but in actual competition, or I should say not exhibitions on the senior women's team, because again, the rivalry series is technically an exhibition. But Laila Edwards suited up for Worlds and comes away with MVP. What did you see? What did you like about her game that you think not only made her successful for the US, Rachel, but also earned her that honor?
Well, I think moving up from the U18 level to the senior level, there could have been a little nervousness there in terms of, could she make that jump and still play at such an elite level? And was it like the level of competition at the U18 level that made her stand out so much? Nope, it's her. It's absolutely her. She fit in perfectly at the senior level, and I think just the tools she has in order to be able to create the high level of offense that she can, I think just transition seamlessly.
And we were talking off air, so to speak, Gil, also about the efficiency. So we mentioned that Laila Edwards is one of the goals leader in the tournament, actually tied with Alex Carpenter, but she got those 6 goals on half the shots of Carpy.
Yeah, and when you have a dangerous shot like that, when you're making the most of your opportunities, that takes you to a different level, and it certainly has to make goaltenders more aware of the danger that you pose when the puck is on your stick.
Yeah, lethal, absolutely. And just to tie a bow on Laila Edwards, again, Rachel, you mentioned we shouldn't be surprised. Plays for the Wisconsin Badgers, 56 points in 2023-24, 21 goals, 35 assists. So not just that shot that Gil was talking about, but also can be a facilitator setting up teammates, which I think is maybe why you see a Laila Edwards as MVP, even though the Directorate Awards for Best Goaltender actually went to the German Sandra Abstreiter. Then we have Best Defender from Canada and Renata Fast, and Best Forward overall.
She's my fave. She's my favorite defender in
Renata
women's
Fast is
hockey.
very good. I really,
Yeah.
I mean, I do like Lee Steckline's game, but again, someone who has retired from the international level. I think also Steckline's size just makes everything so smooth out there when she's playing. But I do like Renata Fast's game, and I think she's also able to be in the offense without just completely abandoning defense.
Yep. Yep.
I think they call it balance, Gil. I'm not sure, but
Yeah, something a few NHL players probably need to take note of as well, but let's not go there.
yes.
PWHL back in action now that the Worlds are over. What's happening there?
Yeah, well, we talked about it last time, but Natalie Spooner continues to just be a fantastic player here for PWHL Toronto. And so we saw some games resume. It was actually Boston overcoming PWHL Toronto, a 2-1 final in that game, and another 1-goal game, a 4-3 win for Montreal over Minnesota. And we talked about also, the gold rule and all the kind of innovations happening on the PWHL side. So it's really crunch time for some of these teams. When we look at the standings, including yesterday's results, it's actually PWHL Toronto and PWHL Minnesota in that 1 and 2 spot. So although they didn't get the wins last night, as Gil, you mentioned, play resumes, they're still at the top of the table in good position. But with that win, PWHL Montreal puts themselves in a good position in 3rd overall. Ottawa and Boston within 2 points of each other. Ottawa 27 points, Boston 25. And then PWHL New York, who will soon be playing in New Jersey. I think actually their first game in New Jersey is over the weekend. They're going to be playing at Prudential Center. We talked about that on the last Spotlight. They just can't seem to get their offense together. There have been reports that Abby Rock is kind of picking her own line mates. Alex Carpenter is on that team. And we know, obviously, from what we just talked about, Gil, that in Worlds, Alex Carpenter, really at any level, Alex Carpenter is a great player, but the synergy just doesn't seem to be there. I mean, how difficult is that for a team that's really trying to make an impact and rise up in the standings, so that they're not, necessarily a lottery team here?
Yeah, it's tough when you don't have team chemistry, when you don't have unity, and obviously also when you have multiple homes. So all of these things probably making things more difficult for New York.
Yeah. And I mean, with rush hour traffic alone, Rachel, we're talking at least a couple of hours from all of their homes, as Gil put it. So that's definitely something, unless they invest in that chopper service, is going to be a little tough.
Yeah, I will say though, the Prudential has the best, I would say, public transit access for people living in the city. So,
which is why we've seen, surprise, women's professional hockey land in that area or in that facility, playing at Prudential Center, and of course right next door at the Barnabas Health Hockey House, the practice facility of the New Jersey Devils in the past. I will also say, as someone who has been there, and this is something that as a part of the Hockey Writers Association, the women's hockey chapter we're talking about, it's been honestly very tough as a media member, especially at Bridgeport. The production is massive, which is great. We love that. But there were two of us working media, at least that went downstairs to interview players at one Bridgeport game, and only one of us had a seat in the arena. And that one wasn't me. So I had to stand up and report on the game, which is not ideal when you're trying to tweet and type and get notes together. So I do know that Prudential will have some more space, and so hopefully some things like that will continue to really up the ante when it comes to the PWHL as they march on to the playoffs. So the season is going to end next month, early May, and then it's off to the playoff push. Again, Toronto and Minnesota kind of in the driver's seat. 1 point also it separates them, and Montreal just 2 points off from Toronto. So it's going to be an interesting game. And again, Montreal getting that win, Gil, pretty big coming right out of the break.
No doubt, no doubt. And it should be a very exciting stretch drive. I know you'll have it covered every step of the way. Erica, thank you so much. Always great to have you here.
Thank you.